Solzhenitsyn said, for example, that one man who stops lying can bring down a tyranny. And he did that, so he knew. And he wasn't the only person who did that, but we each bear ultimate responsibility in some sense for the direction of our mutual striving forward. I think that's the core doctrine of the West, that each individual is sovereign and of divine and ultimate worth. And there's a commensurate responsibility with that. And so I thought, when I realized that, partly from reading Solzhenitsyn, partly from reading Jung, partly from reading Dostoevsky, Frankl, many people were pointing in that direction. Nietzsche, to some degree, that it was necessary for us to become aware of that and to take that responsibility on our own shoulders. And so I've been talking to people as individuals ever since, at McGill, at Harvard, at the University of Toronto, and then more broadly, publicly, inviting people to the adventure of their life, let's say, the moral adventure of their life, driven by my conviction that it actually matters whether you get your act together. Like, it matters eternally in some sense. It matters in a heaven or hell manner. In a totalitarian state, people are locked into tyranny because every individual lies. Every single one. And that's the grip of the totalitarian state. And to the degree that you are living in deceit, let's say, you're contributing to tyranny and the hell that accompanies it. And not in some little way. Not only are you not saying what you should say when you should say it, but you're not doing what needs to be done when you need to do it. You're turning a blind eye and allowing it to happen, but you're also not bringing into the world what you could bring into the world if you brought everything you could into the world. And that lack on your part of bringing into the world what could be there if you would reveal your light, let's say, that's cataclysmic. And that's a painful realization. But it goes along with being a locus of divine worth. And so I believe that. I believe that if you fail to say what you know to be true, you corrupt the world. You corrupt being. If you lie, you corrupt being. Corrupted being is hell. And if we all lie enough, then we have hell. And whether we all lie enough to bring about hell is actually dependent in much larger part than it's what would you say? It's that you might desire to admit. It's dependent on your choice. And so one of the reasons we love doing what we're doing, I would say, is because we come to these events with thousands of people, and everybody at the event is there because they're trying to aim up. And often doing so, especially in contrast to their previous efforts. And that's unbelievably motivating and wonderful to see, but also necessary. We are very powerful now, all of us, with our incredible technological gadgets, our computational power, and that's going to get way more, we're going to get way more powerful than that really fast. And so you better get your act together, because children can't wield that sort of power without all hell breaking loose. And so I'm very optimistic, because things could be maybe better than we could even imagine. But if we want to, we could sure make them worse. So we all have to decide, are we aiming up with all we got? Or are we aiming down? So, and I hope that whatever we're doing tonight is a contribution to the consensus that we should each do what we can in the confines of our own life, in the unlimited expanse of the opportunity of our own lives to aim up. And if we all do that carefully enough, then up we'll go. So, there's a gospel statement, something very harsh that's been attributed to Christ. Don't cast pearls before swine. It's a rough statement. And what it means is stop talking to people who aren't listening. It might be that you have someone in your family you can't reconcile with, because when you try to make peace, you're just rebuffed. And you can try multiple times and be rebuffed, and that might be a reflection of your lack of skill, and to some degree probably is, but sometimes you're talking to someone who is pursuing that misery. And until they're willing to not do that, you may not be able to communicate with them. But then part of that reconciliation process with your father would also be the development of the ability to distinguish between people or situations that you can address productively and those you can't. And those you can't, you have to just let go, and not push. And listen. Yeah, right, because people will tell you. Yeah, well, that's true. That's a good point too. I mean, if you keep talking to someone and they're not listening, and you stop talking, sometimes you can stop talking and just listen. And then if you listen hard enough, they'll tell you what their problem is. And that's really worth knowing too. So if you have a family member who you can't communicate with, and you keep trying to make your point, and it's not working, it's like, quit trying to make your point. It's not working. Why? You're not talking to who you think you're talking to. They're not hearing what you think you're saying. You're not where you think you are. So then you think, okay, where am I? And the answer is, well, you don't know. You've got to start to explore. How do you find out where you are? Listen to them. Don't offer them your opinion at all if it's not working. Just listen. They will eventually tell you what they're up to. And not only will they tell you what they're up to, they'll tell you how you could fix it. And that's really something to watch when you see it happen. So that's a good rule of thumb. You try 3 times to reconcile yourself to someone, with someone, you just hit a wall. It's like, quit talking. Quit talking. Listen harder. If that isn't working, listen even harder. They'll reveal themselves, and then you'll be able to figure out what to do. And that's, again, assuming that they're not aiming down. And now and then you run into someone who's aiming down hard, and you just have to let them hit whatever they're aiming at hard enough to either kill them or wake them up. And often there's not much you can do about that except try to be a good example, and to be available if they do need to reach out. So imagine you got 6 or 7 people in your family you want to reconcile with. You can try it with a couple of them. If you're making some progress, good, you can walk down that path. If you're being rebuffed, it's like, well, that's not a door that's open to you at the moment. So yeah, the promise is that you can atone for your past sins by confession and the genuine determination to do better in the future, right? And hopefully that's true, because otherwise when you make a mistake, you're lost and there's no way forward. And the best way forward is to figure out what you brought to the table. That's at least somewhat under your control.